So we now know John Bolton is claiming in his upcoming book that Donald Trump explicitly set out a quid pro quo with Ukraine over military aid and investigations of the Bidens. And so you know what time it is in American politics. It's time for these sorts of headlines. Report, GOP senators shaken by Bolton allegations of Trump-Ukraine scheme. Now look, maybe, fingers crossed, maybe this is the time when them being shaken behind the scenes actually represents something. But we have heard them be shaken a whole bunch of times over the past few years, and it very rarely has amounted to much of anything. To give an example of what I mean, reporter Haley Bird, she was on the Hill today, and so she asked Republican Senator Josh Hawley, why wouldn't the Senate want to hear from a firsthand witness like John Bolton? And very serious Senator Josh Hawley responded, well, I don't know, is he a firsthand witness? I'm not sure. What does firsthand witness mean if not the person who had a conversation with Donald Trump about this? Like at this point, is Donald Trump a firsthand witness? Like they've been crowing month after month, we want to hear from people that were actually in the room. John Bolton, what name so? Keep him out of the city. We don't want him anywhere near a camera during this trial. And that's the thing, they're shaken. Maybe it's inconvenient, I guess. It looks bad for them. It's a reminder that they've sold their souls to Donald Trump and his cult. But are they shaken enough to actually vote based on it? Kind of doubt it. Now, Susan Collins says that this new revelation has bolstered the case for witnesses. I've heard her be frustrated with stuff before. Again, until they've actually voted against the interests of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, I will believe it when I see it. Now, supposedly behind the scenes, there is at least some pushback against Trump in the White House. Maggie Haberman tweeted, per sources, some GOP senators privately pushing White House for information on who in administration had visibility into the manuscript over the last month. Senators feel blindsided. Oh, do you? Oh, Republican senators, were you surprised to find out that in the end, they knew that this was coming, but they didn't tell you because they didn't care what happened to you? Are you shocked that you were betrayed by Donald Trump after showing great loyalty to him? Have they been paying attention to this process? It's like someone in the 6th season watching Game of Thrones is like, oh my God, he just killed my favorite character, how could he? Do you know anything about this? That's what he does. He turns on you, he doesn't care about you, he's protecting himself. I cannot believe that they are feeling blindsided remotely at this point. But anyway, I mean, look, that's the Republican politicians. Let's turn briefly to how is the right-wing media going to address this. Here is a bit of Fox and Friends having now discovered what John Bolton knows.
They said that John Bolton has been distributing copies to any or all, to everyone. They said we did not. They said the Times reporting there says they shared the manuscript with others is false. They say they did it through the process, and the process obviously is corrupt. So if John Bolton's lawyers are telling the truth here, and they just submitted it in, and it's leaked out, if that is indeed the case, more evidence that people within the administration are actually against the administration. And the other thing is, devastating timing, because this thing was on the fast track to closing out without witnesses on Friday. Right. Only Mitt Romney pretty much saying, I want to see witnesses. Everybody else saying, I've heard enough. And now this gives fuel to the Senator Schumers of the world, the Adam Schiffs of the world to say, I need a witness, and he wants to testify.
But when you say devastating timing, it's got to be a coincidence, right? That it would come out just hours before the Senate impeachment is going to start at 1 o'clock.
Okay. Is it a coincidence? No, obviously it's not a coincidence. Obviously he wants to sell books, but again, that does not mean that what he's saying is not true. And when Brian Kilmeade, he had like a quarter of a thought there, which is still a record for him. But when he says this is devastating, that it throws fuel to those who are saying we need witnesses. Okay, why does it do that? Because this is a person who was in those rooms, knew Donald Trump, was involved in all of this, and is saying something that is incredibly damning to the case that Donald Trump has laid out. That's why. Not just because it's inconvenient, not just because there's one team and there's another team, I'm on this team, I don't like when something works for them. Let's get to the substance of what actually happened. It is devastating because people are going to want to know what John Bolton actually knows, and they want him under oath when they're saying that. Complete the actual thought. Go beyond partisanship and tribalism and talk about what is actually at stake here. And just briefly, in terms of what's at stake, if there's any remaining credibility for Fox and Friends, take a look at Steve Doocy right there. He has no interest in what is now being described as a 100% clear quid pro quo. Let's go to Steve Doocy a couple months ago and Steve Doocy today.
Because if the president said, I'll give you the money, but you got to investigate Joe Biden, that is really off the rails wrong. Apparently it says Bolton was told Trump wanted to continue freezing money to Ukraine until they helped with probes of the Bidens. But we heard him say in the transcript he wanted President Zelensky to look into the Bidens and what happened in 2016. So is this a big story?
Maybe it's off the rails wrong. Maybe something can go off the rails, but after a couple of months it can go back on the rails. I don't know. I love that, like, the 100% clear identifiable hypocrisy matters. Not at all. And now they've turned to, I'm not gonna go through all the tweets, they're all attacking John Bolton. They loved him a little bit ago, but now he's the worst person in the world. In fact, even Brian Kilmeade, this is according to Matthew Gertz, he says the president, quote, has to do a better job vetting his staff. Bolton worked for Fox News for like a decade, okay? So who needs to do better vetting? You had no problem with him when he was pushing for war on Fox News literally every single day, but now he's working against the interests of Donald Trump, and so suddenly he's a big issue. Okay, well, I would love to hear what he has to say. Hopefully we will see witnesses, although I'm not holding my breath. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.